Welcome back mga future RMTs. In this lecture, what we're going to discuss is all about acids and bases. But before we discuss acids and bases, let's have first our learning outcomes. Number one is to identify acids and base properties as well as the reaction. Number two is translate conjugate acids and bases. And number three is to formulate equations applying acids and base theory. Okay? So, now, let's discuss na what is an acid and base. I know na this is not the first time that you heard the word acid, and this is not also the first time that you heard the word base. Okay? When you were in junior high school or senior high school, I am pretty sure that your teacher, no, introduced to you already what is an acid and what is an base. Or what is a base, rather. No, sabi nila, acid is the one with hydrogen ion or with hydrogen. No? Acid is the one with hydrogen and base is the one with hydroxide. Well, I will not contest your teacher if they tell you that thing. That's correct. No, that's correct. Acid is the one with hydrogen and all base is the one with hydroxide. But not all. No, not all acid will have hydrogen. Not all base will have hydroxide because we have what we call the conjugate acid and a conjugate base, which is a product of acid-base reaction. Ngayon, in this lecture, what we are going to discuss are what are the different definitions of acids and bases. And if we are going to discuss the definitions of acids and bases, there are actually three definitions or three persons who are involved in the definition of an acid and base. The first one is according to the definition of Arrhenius. Okay? So the first definition that we are going to discuss is about the definition of Arrhenius. Hey, ano ba yung sabi ni Arrhenius? According to Arrhenius before, yung acid daw, yung merong hydrogen. Yung base daw, yung mayroong hydronium. Okay? But he found out that this definition is somehow inconsistent, somehow incorrect, no? Somehow irrelevant. That's why there is a modification on the definition of acids and bases as per Arrhenius. Instead of saying meron siyang hydrogen, meron siyang hydronium, no? Arrhenius said that an acid, okay, an acid is a substance that produces hydronium ion when they react in a solution. And base is the one that produces hydroxide ion. Now take note guys that hydrogen reacts immediately in a water molecule to give a hydronium ion, and that is H3O positive. This is our hydronium ion. The substance that produced hydronium ion is our acid. Balikan natin, ano yung sabi before? Acid daw yung mayroong hydrogen ion. And it reacts completely, immediately with water molecule. The hydrogen that is seen present in the acid reacts immediately with water molecule so that it will produce or it will give hydronium ion. While for base, it will react or produces hydroxide ion. It is therefore important to take note that hydrogen, okay, plus water will give us our hydronium ion. Okay, let's say for example, we have here our water plus hydrochloric acid. So as we all know, hydrochloric acid is what? A acid, from the word itself, acid. And hydrochloric acid is an example of our, correct, ionic equation or ionic bond. So when dissolved in water, no, it will give us hydrogen ions and chloride ion. And sabi natin, hydrogen ion reacts immediately with our water molecule. Therefore, it will give us hydronium ion plus chloride. Okay? Hydronium ion plus chloride. Okay? So, originally, okay, originally, water molecule is like this, right? Plus our hydrogen or hydrochloric acid is like that. Okay? This hydrogen, no, reacts with, okay, our uh, high, this water molecule rather, this water molecule reacts with the hydrogen from the hydrochloric acid so that it will give us hydronium ion. Okay? Remember, according to Arrhenius, acid is the one that produces hydronium ion. Okay? Now, with bases, okay, somehow different. Okay? There are many bases or most of the bases are metal bases. Okay? When we said metal bases or yung hydroxide natin, ang kasama niya ay ano? Mga metal. Okay? So example natin, we have sodium hydroxide. Yung sodium hydroxide daw po natin, again, you are correct. This is an example of ionic bonds na dissolved sa water, no? Dinosociate po natin or nagawa po tayo ng sodium hydroxide solution, no? Then it will split into its ions, having sodium ions and hydroxide ion. From the definition of acid and base, ang sabi po natin, kapag nakapag-produce ang ating compound ng hydroxide ion, that is a base. However, no? However, ito yung maganda kasi. Kasi palatandaan natin before, lahat ng may lahat ng may hydroxide base, lahat ng may hydrogen acid. Pero hindi na nga siya yung magandang definition. Because the correct definition or the right definition is if it is able to produce hydronium, then that is base. That is an acid. Because hydrogen from acid reacts almost completely with water or immediately with water to form hydronium ion. While for base that reacts with water or dissolves in water will split to give us hydroxide, okay, our OH. Pero not all ay merong OH kagaya nito. Let's say for example, we have ammonia. Si ammonia NH3 plus water. Okay? Alam natin, si ammonia ay ano? If you're going to define or if you are going to base the definition of acid and base to as the one having a hydroxide, you cannot say that this is an acid, this is a base. You would rather say that this is an acid because of the hydrogen. Pero since we are already emitting that definition, therefore we can now say that If ammonia in reaction with water produces hydroxide, then that is a base. Okay, so what will happen? So we have ammonia and water. Okay, so ammonia will react with water, and the water will lose one of its hydrogen for ammonia. Okay, that will be, it will produce ammonium ion plus hydroxide. Thus, ammonia produces hydroxide in reaction with water? Yes. Can we say ammonia as base? Of course, yes. In other words, it is not always with hydrogen. It is not always called acid if you have hydrogen present on it. It is not always called base kapag mayroong hydroxide, because some bases does not possess hydroxide. Now, ano yung dapat natin tandaan ngayon? Acid plus water will produce hydronium ion. Base plus water will produce hydroxide ion. And that is the definition of acids and bases according to Arrhenius. Can you guys follow? I hope you can follow. There are what we call acids and bases strength. No, mayroon po tayong tinatawag na acids and bases or strength, or acid base, acid strength, and base strength. We have what we call strong acid. Okay? We have what we call strong acid. Dapat, kagaya ng acid, ikaw ay strong. We also have what we call strong base. Okay? What is with strong acid and strong base? Ang sabi natin, an acid is considered a strong acid if it can give or it can lose, or it can give or it can lose almost completely with water to form hydronium ions. It can give or lose completely its hydrogen, no, its hydrogen to form, okay, to form hydronium ion. In other words, kapag lahat ng hydrogen na meron si acid ay kaya niyang ibigay, then siya ay isang example of a strong acid. To give you an example of an acid which can give almost completely its hydrogen ion to form hydronium ion, the best example for that is our hydrochloric acid. Okay? Hydrochloric acid plus water. Ilan pong hydrogen ang meron sa hydrochloric acid? Meron siyang isang hydrogen. At kaya bang i-lose ni hydrochloric acid lahat ng hydrogen na meron siya? Yes. Ang sagot doon, guys, yes. Thus, it will produce hydronium ion plus chloride ion. Is hydrochloric acid considered a strong acid? Yes. Why? Because it can give almost completely, no, reacts almost completely with water to form hydronium ion. Okay. Another example is the hydrobromic acid, HBr, plus water will give us hydronium ion plus bromide. Now, how about for strong base? Strong base is the other way around of acid. Kung kay acid, kaya nang i-lose lahat para mag-produce ng hydronium ion. Ito naman, reacts completely or almost completely with water to form, of course, hydronium ion. Example, lithium hydroxide reacts with water will give us lithium and hydroxide. Lithium and uh, hydroxide. No. It should be like this. Let me rewrite it so that you will not be misled. Okay. Dissolves in water. Anong H2O? And dissolves in water, it will give us lithium ion and hydroxide ion. Nagbigay po ba siya ng hydroxide? Yes. Okay, so that is how are we going to define strong acid and strong base. Well, of course, if there are strong acid and strong base, definitely there are what we call also a weak acid and a weak base. So, how are we going to define weak acid? When we said weak acid is actually a substance that dissolves only or dissociates only partially in water to give us hydronium ion. In other words, hindi niya kayang i-lose lahat ng hydrogen na meron siya. For example, acetic acid. Acetic acid is a carboxylic acid, no? CH3COOH. That's the active component of vinegar. However, acetic acid in reaction with water, no, cannot give off or give almost all of its hydrogen. Ang kaya lang niyang i-lose ay isa. Okay? So the reaction would be acetic acid CH3COOH plus water will give us acetate CH3COO negative plus hydronium ion. Sir, question. Kaya na ba bang ibigay yung tatitira niyang tatlong hydrogen? No. Hindi na. In other words, that is an example of a weak acid. Therefore, we cannot say that the more hydrogen that you have, the stronger acid that you are. Mali po yun. No? Maling sabihin na pag mas maraming hydrogen, mas acidic. No. Because the correct way on defining strong acid and strong acid is if you can give everything that you have, give all hydrogen that you have, then you are strong. No, kaya mong ilus matatag ka, strong ka. But if you have something and you cannot lose everything completely, then you are weak. Now, how about for weak base? Okay? How about for weak base? How are we going to define weak base? Definitely the same thing. Ano lang yung pinagkaiba? Yung hydrogen ion. Okay? It means that a weak base, a substance that partially reacts with water, partially lang, hindi almost completely, unlike our strong acid, partially reacts with water to produce hydroxide ion. Example of a weak base is ammonia. The ammonia weak base, okay, plus water will give us our ammonium ion, and our hydroxide. Okay? So that is the definition of Arrhenius about acids and bases. Acids is the one that when reacts with water will give us hydronium ion. The more hydronium ion you produce, no, the acidic you are. Ano? The more hydrogen that you reacts with water molecule, the acidic you are. The less or the less hydronium ion that you can lose in reaction with water, the weaker acid you are. Okay? So again, please take note, strong acid reacts completely or almost completely with water to form hydronium ion. And base is the one that reacts completely or almost completely with water to produce hydroxide ion. Okay? So that is the definition of Arrhenius about acids and bases. The next video will be about the definition of Bronsted and Lowry about acids and bases.